not constrained by the past, nor the future, nor even the present. Freedom to be the one. And so on Juneteenth, when we celebrate the freedom of enslavement, let's also celebrate the possibility of us not being enslaved to the conditioning of our minds and our bodies, not being enslaved to the conditioning of our society, not being enslaved to the habits of our parents, but to be absolutely free. The Buddha one day woke up to he who could say, I am that. That's your spiritual inheritance. That's who you are as well. As the Buddha said, what I am, you can be. Or as Jesus said, I am the way. 1865, June 19th, Union General went to Galveston area and told 25,000 people who had been enslaved that they were free. That was the last population in the country to hear about it, and about the time the war was over. And it marked an end to a long history of enslavement in this country. Exactly how long, I'm not sure, but roughly 200 years. And it was a long time coming. And the sense of freedom that some people got that day must have been profound. And that sense of freedom, I'm sure, gave them encouragement to go and be who they wanted to be in ways they had not been allowed to for some time. And it wasn't long, though, before Jim Crow came about around the 1870s, mid-1870s. And that then started about a 90-year period in which laws were regressive. And it wasn't until the mid-60s that those laws were being overturned, and there was another sense of growing freedom again. And it kind of reminds me that one of the things that we assume that is most precious in our life is not a guarantee. That even though it is precious and everyone longs for freedom when they don't have it, and many will fight for it, and many have died for it, it can be lost. And so let's be careful with it. Let's be careful with the freedom. Let's pay attention to encroachment upon it. And let's remember that in this world where that can be lost, it's incumbent upon all of us to see each other as equals, and to do our best to make sure that those who don't see us as equals do not have the upper hand. So I was reminded also that in reading about this, that this is also Pride Month. And Pride Month is something of the same thing, a long history of discrimination against homosexual people, people who are not just like everybody else, people who see the world and feel the world differently, have often had a very difficult time. You know, one of the groups that we love to hate in this country are German Nazis, but one of the things that was true about Germany in 1933 was it was called the homosexual capital of the world. Didn't last, but this group that you are among, this group has decided consciously, and sometimes against our training, that all people are created equal, but not only created equal, but are part of the Creator themselves. That they are sacred in and of themselves, and within each person in this room, no matter what they look like on the exterior, we share a common thing, which is our shared divinity, that we have within us the very core that is the very core of the one we call the One, the presence. And that is what binds us together as much as anything in this room, where we realize that what we're looking at when we see another person is really part of ourselves. That it may be just a nascent experience, but that And it may only come occasionally, but that remembrance is the thing that would keep us from doing stupid things to hurt other people because we thought they were different than us. And really, when you think about it, this whole idea that we are able to distinguish from others because of the body is because we believe so, mostly unconsciously, but so thoroughly that we are the body. And therefore, if we look different, if we come from a different culture or we're from a different part of the world, we are different. Of course, on the surface, we are. We're radically different. I can't remember where I was recently, but there was a tall one and a short one and a big one and a gray one and a spanking new one. And I just thought, look at the variation we have here. Look how much this species we call a human being can be so radically different. I think only dogs can compete with us, right? And yet, we believe and look for that which is underneath that surface, and that's what we can find commonality with. Anyone. Because even those who are haters are gods underneath. And that is bizarrely wonderful and hard to see at times. But when we see it, it is like, whoa. So that's the way it works. Now, freedom, I think, has several layers. Sociological, political, economic, on that level. That is what most of the conversation is in this country. It's about the freedom to be whatever you want to be, the freedom to pursue happiness, which seems to be a bad formula in the first place. Almost every psychologist would tell you that happiness is really a byproduct of something else, not the direct object. When you go directly toward it, you tend to be going away from it. So the trick is, in the pursuit of freedom, is to do the things that would allow freedom to exist, which might mean self-control, oddly enough. Just like happiness, it may be less directed toward something. It might be more about commitment and limiting what you do rather than expanding only. We are a complex human beings, but our society is also complex. And it's an interrelational experience. And so even though we say we want freedom, we also need constraints. And they are best served when the constraints come from the individuals. So while we talk about freedom, it's not the freedom to run over someone with your car, or even to run rampant-shod in a national forest, or to fire your weapon in any direction you wish to. There are many limits to our freedom. What really allows us to be free is to find the fulfillment of our potential. That's what freedom is about. Not so much about callous indifference to the outcome of our actions, rather a purposeful movement toward that which is the best within us. This is how you use freedom. And to that end, I think one of the things that would really serve all of us, and has served many of us in this room, is the pursuit of emotional freedom. Emotional freedom. Most of us have had things in our lives that were extremely painful to experience. And for many of us, there's a residue that's left with that. And that residue needs to be addressed in some therapeutic fashion. And there are many private ways of doing that. There's prayer, there's meditation, there's rapid eye movement, there's tapping, there's therapy, there's coming to church, which somehow just seems to be a healing force. So addressing our emotional states, because our reactivity is a sense of freedom for sure, but it tends to have repercussions with others. Adam Smith once said, "You have the right to swing your fist as far as your neighbor's nose." And the same is with the words you use and the way you treat people as well. You have the right to be crazy until you're ruining someone else's life. But it doesn't help to feel crazy and angry and frustrated and never satisfied. It doesn't help us. So it's important that we deal with that which is keeping us from having it. And one more time, it's going through the problem rather than going for the solution. Because it, as I was, we did a funeral yesterday, and I was talking to some people who've never been in this church before, but had heard about it because they knew the people, the family that had been here. And I said, this is one of the most stable, sane congregations I've ever been in. that we do a really good job of self-medicating. This healing is important. It's how you get to freedom. It's not the freedom from having the experience of anger, frustration. It's not that. It comes by going through it, coming to a deeper understanding, awakening to your healthy self, and coming from that place. That's what freedom is. And so it's important that we seek freedom, but we seek freedom not at the expense of ourselves or others. Now, there's a third form of freedom that I think in a spiritual community we must talk about. And that is the freedom that is the freedom from the identification with the body and the mind as who you are. When we believe that we're our bodies, one of the things that is inevitable that you'll experience is death. The body dies. And the fear of death, I think, is very much tied to, though not only restricted to, but very much tied to how much of an understanding you have that you're not your body, that you're more than that you're not really even that, never were, is a very great liberating experience. And when we cultivate that experience, when we apply ourselves to the deep discovery of that which has always been here, that we are essentially consciousness, not body. That distinction, that deep realization is liberation. Liberation even on the emotional level. Because you can have the emotions and you're just more aware that they're there. And they arise. They arise because you have a body. They arise because you have a brain that is thinking. It's natural to have emotions. It's natural to have body sensations. But what's liberating, and not just in an escapist way, what's liberating is to wake up to the true nature of who you are at your deepest level. And that is what spiritual practice is about. That's why we're here in this place. As we like to say, we're awakening to our divine nature through love, service, and personal transformation. And just as a pitch in the next few weeks, that's what we'll be talking about, love, service, and personal transformation. But I want to say that the discovery that within you is this consciousness that has always been there and always will be there. And that, as someone said, that consciousness was there before your grandparents were born. That's who you're going to find out you are when you look. And the looking is really an interesting process, because basically the looking for that is the looking not out into the world, not trying to make the world different, not trying to do all these things on the outer, it's looking to see who's having the experience to begin with. Who is that? Who's the one having the experience? And of course, for all of you, I'm sure the first answer is I am. And don't be smart about it. I am, of course. I am, right? I'm having that experience. And the way to work that realization that the I am is having the experience is to look at the I am. Not just look at it kind of like cognitively, but to feel it. And to continue to feel into this I am presence. And as you feel into this I am presence, what I find is trippy is that when I'm doing that, if I'm walking, let's say I'm decided that I'm going to explore the I am, I'm walking, my sense of the world is it's coming to me, even though I'm doing the motion, it feels like it's coming to me because I'm in the still place. And the still place is your natural self. And the still place is what connects you to the total consciousness that we have often called God. And so returning to your still place is returning toward your divine self, your God self, your oneness with the presence. This doesn't mean you have to sit in cross-leg meditation for the next 20 years to have this experience. You could just do it on a daily basis, a little at a time, over and over. Just like mindfulness helps as you do it over and over. Mindfulness is that paying attention to one thing. If you make your paying attention to one thing in mindfulness, paying attention to the self that is experiencing all that is, now you are doubling down on your awakening experience. So instead of just saying, I'm going to pay attention to my senses, let's say to the sense of smell as I walk around, try paying attention to the one that's paying attention. And let your mindfulness be mindfulness of the mind or the experiencer. Let that be what you're paying attention to. And hold on to that enough that that gradually becomes your identity. And then you have emotions and you have a body. But you're not your emotions and you're not your body. You're the one that has always been here from before your birth to this moment and after. That consciousness, that is who you are. That, according to the sages, is freedom. Not constrained by the past, nor the future, nor even the present. Freedom. To be the one. And so on Juneteenth, when we celebrate the freedom of enslavement, let's also celebrate the possibility of us not being enslaved to the conditioning of our minds and our bodies, not being enslaved to the conditioning of our society, not being enslaved to the habits of our parents, but to be absolutely free. The Buddha, one day woke up to he who could say, I am that. That's your spiritual inheritance. That's who you are as well. As the Buddha said, what I am, you can be. Or as Jesus said, I am the way. Do it like this. I think you should have another line in there. Do it like this, idiot. Remember Clinton saying it's the economy, stupid, right? This is essentially the same thing. This is spiritual practice. It is awakening to your awareness. That's it. So let us practice. Take a moment. So as we sit, can you feel your breath? Now, can you be aware that you felt your breath? And aware of the one who's felt your breath? Can you be aware of the I am? And then turn all attention, your sense of feeling, your sense of awareness toward that. Nisargadatta says this: nothing, physical or mental, can give you freedom. You are free once you understand that your bondage is of your own making, and you cease forging the chains that bind you. Cease believing it is out there that will give you the ultimate freedom, and turn within and find it. And so it is. And so we let it be. I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org. Hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.